Perfect. There we go. It's working fine. I don't know. That's just. Jump scare.
This does nothing because I use my phone to record my voice.
So let's talk about race-based voice acting. So I'm making this video because a few months ago, it was a pretty big deal. Sungwon Cho, I hope I pronounced that right, I probably butchered that, mostly known as ProZD over on the internet, who does skits and he does food reviews. He's also a voice actor. And there was recently a controversy sort of with him. He said he went into an audition to play a role, and the role he was given was the Asian character. And that was fine, but he was looking through some of the other characters, and he would talk to his agent and was like, hey, I would like to try out for some of these other characters, in which his agent told him no, because those characters were drawn white, and of course he is an Asian guy. And basically his agent told him that's just how studios are doing things now. And at the end of it all, I believe he didn't even try out for the role because he was just upset that he was basically degraded down to the Asian guy. Now, why is this such a controversy? That makes total sense. Why should he not be allowed to play a character because of his race? Well, because ProZD, and as well as a bunch of other creators, as we all know, there was a very large discussion 2-3 years ago about having white people voice minorities. And it basically became a conversation of should that be allowed? And the answer many studios decided to come up with was no. And this went on with a bunch of different other companies of firing people because they did not match the skin tone of the character that they were voicing. And many minorities were excited because this opened the door for minorities to voice characters, that they weren't no longer just going to hire white people to voice a minority. As I said before, ProZD was one of these people that was against letting white people voice minorities. The issue that many people were citing was the fact that it seems hypocritical that ProZD was one of these people that was so against white people voicing minorities and that minorities should voice minorities, but then when he gets told that he has to voice a minority and is not allowed to voice someone of a different race, that he claims that's unfair because he didn't get the job. And so the controversy came from a large debate on the internet on whether or not this is what the argument was about. Letting minorities only voice minorities. They were just saying that minorities should voice minorities, with ProZD responding saying, people will go, oh, you don't want authentic casting. If your entire main cast is all white and you have one token side character who can apparently just be any type of Asian ever, this is not a level playing field. Now, I do agree with that. If you are having a television show or a movie and your entire cast is white and you just have a few minorities because you feel like you're required to, that's not okay. But I would also say that it is not up to people to create stories for minorities. To use ProZD's example, yes, there's going to be television shows and movies with predominantly white cast because there's going to be predominantly white writers and white directors. Not saying that there aren't minority directors or writers, of course there are. As a white person, when writing a minority, you kind of have two options. You can either write them very stereotypical, which is considered racist. But we've also gotten to an age in which if a white person writes a minority with no stereotypes whatsoever, and they're more so just a blank character with a color palette, minorities tend to get upset and say, hey, this isn't the representation that we want. So as a white writer, you feel stuck in this bubble of what is too stereotypical compared to what is not. So what is the opposite? The option is to just not write minority characters. If you feel like your character is going to be too stereotypical or not hold enough of the cultural properties, you're just not going to write a story with minorities. You're going to write what you know, which is fine, but at the same time, you can't complain at companies like Disney and Warner Brothers and whoever else to why aren't they writing minority stories, because you don't want them to write minority stories. And I'm sure an argument to that would be something along the lines of, well, why don't you just hire minority writers? Well, it's not necessarily about whether or not they're a minority. It's about whether, in fact, they can write a good story. Same thing with acting. It doesn't matter if they're black, white, brown, pink, or almond. It matters if they can act good. That goes same with voice acting. And if you are a writer and you want a minority in your story and you just hire a black person or an Asian person or some sort to help you write that character, you kind of seem like a racist. You're just hiring a minority to tell you about minorities. It is a very difficult and dangerous path to walk along because there is no right way to do things. You're either going to be too stereotypical or not stereotypical enough, or, you know, that person doesn't sound like this, or that's not what they're supposed to look like, and it's very hard. So the simplest solution is to only write what you know. And if you're a white person, you're only going to write for white people. That's just the easiest way to go. And it goes the same way for this voice acting controversy. If you, as a casting director, are told, hey, white people can only voice the whites, guess what? They're only going to hire white people to voice the white characters. And they're only going to hire the Asian people to do the Asian characters, because it's not fair to go to an Asian guy and say, hey, you got the job, you're going to be playing this white guy, but then go to the white guy and go, hey, you can't hire you, you're a great voice actor, but your character that you voiced was Asian. Now, if you want my personal opinion, I don't think that it matters. I think that you are voicing a character, and as long as you are a good voice actor, that should be it. No one should be looking at the skin color of the person who is being voiced. If you are, you're probably a racist. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter where representation is coming from. That's not the important thing. The important thing is making sure that the representation is there. Because as long as it's there, it doesn't matter who's making it. Hey, thanks for watching. Remember, you could have seen this video over a week earlier if you were subscribed over to my Patreon. On top of that, I've posted clips of this video throughout the week over on TikTok, so if you've come from TikTok, I appreciate it. And if you don't want to follow me on either of those things, you can go ahead and hit the subscribe button for me. I would really appreciate it. This is the first video I've made in this style, so please comment any and all feedback. It's absolutely necessary in order for me to make the best content for you guys. And be sure to hit all of the links in the description so you can follow me on all of the social media accounts, and I appreciate you for making it to the end. And of course, as always, my name is Dion, but you can call me Isby, and I'm out.
Offended that he was damn.